Hi, boys and girls. My name is Mrs. Riolo, and I'm a reading teacher at Pleasant Valley Primary School. Today, we're going to read a nonfiction book about how plants grow. Before we start our lesson today, if you want to participate with me, you're going to need a few things. So you're either going to need a piece of paper and something to write with, like a pencil or a pen, or if you have a whiteboard and a marker with an eraser, you can use that too. You'll also need some kind of letters. If you have magnetic letters or little letters like this, that'll work. If you have letters from a game like Boggle or Scrabble, those will work too. If you don't have any letters, you can make your own by getting little squares of paper, and you can write the letters on the squares of paper or Post-it notes. So I'll give you a minute, pause the video, go collect your materials, and I'll see you back soon. All right, welcome back. So like I said before, we're going to be reading a nonfiction book about how plants grow. Before we do that though, I'm going to introduce you to a word that we're going to be seeing in our book today. The word is the word they. Go ahead and read this word with me. They. They is a tricky word because we hear the A sound, but there is no A in they. It's EY. So we have to just remember this word. So I want you to pretend like you have a camera in your brain, and I want you to look right here and snap a picture of the word they. All right. We're going to play a little game called What's Missing. So I'm going to take a letter away, and I want you to say what letter is missing. It's the letter E. If you said the E, you're correct. Let's say the word they. Let's spell this word. T-H-E-Y, they. Good. What letter is missing? The Y. Some of you may have noticed that when I take the Y away, we have the word the. And when we add the Y back, it turns it into the word they. All right, we're going to do what's missing one last time. I took two letters away. Do you remember the two letters? T and H. What's the word? They. Good. We're going to play a little game called Mix and Fix, and I would like you to join in with me. If you have letters, I want you to spell the word they with your magnetic letters. If you don't have letters, you can write on little squares of paper the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, and the letter Y. And go ahead and lay these out to spell the word they on the table in front of you. Okay, so you should have the word they in front of you. If you need more time, go ahead and pause the video. Build the word they and really take a good look at it. Let's mix it up, and then you're going to fix it. So I want you to scramble all your letters up, and I want you to fix them and build the word they. So you should have your T, and then your H, and then your E, and your Y. Make sure you check that you have your word they spelled correctly. So put your finger under the T. We're going to slide, or you can point to the words as we read them. Ready? Read with me. T, H, E, Y, they. Good. Now we're going to do something called table writing. So you're going to take your finger, you're going to pretend like it's a pencil, and you're going to write right below it. And you're going to spell the word they. T, H, E, Y, they. Good. Let's mix and fix that one last time. So mix them up really good and then fix them. Go ahead and make your word they. T, H, E, Y, and the word is they. Good. Very good. So we're going to see this word in our book today. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to look at our book. And our book today is called How Plants Grow. And today, when we are looking, we're going to do a picture walk through our book. That's a good strategy that readers use when they're getting a new book that they've never seen before, is they look at the pictures and they start to think about what they might be reading about. So this is a nonfiction book. How can I tell just by looking at the cover that this might be a nonfiction book? What clues does the author leave us? Well, I see that there's a real photograph of a person. It looks like a child holding a plant in their hand. And the title is How Plants Grow, which makes me think that this is going to teach us about how plants grow. And when we're reading a book that's teaching us something, I know that that's a nonfiction book. We're going to be learning something and it's going to be giving us true information. So let's dive a little deeper into our book. This is our title page, How Plants Grow, and it's written by an author. Her name is Ruth Maddison. Let's turn to the next page. So when I look at this page, I can see more photographs, and I see a photograph of somebody with a little mini plant in their hand, and I can see a lot of different parts in this plant. I'm going to keep looking through and doing a picture walk through our book. I see some really cool photographs here. I see some plants growing in pots. And I also see some plants growing, it looks like they're almost growing on those rocks. Right here, I can see that. And I can see that they're growing in these pots over here. Let's keep turning the page. Now I see that we've got some plants in maybe what looks like a desert over here. I can see that there's a cactus and there's some high mountains in the background. And again, these are all real photographs. And that's something that we know when we're reading nonfiction texts, is that the author usually puts photographs to show us what they're going to be teaching us. And we can see here that there's plants growing maybe what looks like in a forest. Let's turn the page. Now I see some plants growing, this looks interesting over here. I'm noticing these plants maybe look like they're almost underwater or in like a cave or something. It's kind of hard to tell. I bet when we dive into the text, we'll be able to tell a little bit more about where the plants are growing. And when I look at this page over here, I can see that these plants are growing on top of what looks like another tree. I wonder if they're growing near on that tree. Now it looks like my author is talking maybe about, I can see down here from this caption. So a caption tells us what our photographs, what we're reading or what's happening in the photograph. And so let's read this caption together. It says, plants can take energy from the sun and make sugars. So now they're telling us a little bit about what plants need to survive. So the beginning part of this book tells us where we're going to see different plants growing. And then in this middle part of the text, they're talking about the different things that plants need to survive. So I want you to activate your background knowledge. I want you to think about what you know about plants and things that live and grow. And what are some things that living plants need in order to survive or to grow? I want you to think of a few things. Good. So I know that plants need the sun to grow. That's what makes their food. And I can see in this picture the sun. So, and then I also can see over here that there's some water. And so I know that plants need water to also grow. This next page here shows a really cool diagram. So sometimes in nonfiction text, the author gives us diagrams, which is another feature of a nonfiction text. And the diagram shows us something in detail, and it has all of these great labels over here. And so what I can see the author is showing us on this page is the different parts of a plant. And they've drawn this really cool diagram of a plant, and we can actually see above the ground and below the ground. And they've got these great labels written here to show us what the different parts are. So when I look at my label, I can see that this part here is the flower. And the next part that they've labeled for us is the stem. And then they've labeled the next part. Do you know what these are called? These are called leaves. They wrote the word leaf. And then what are these things that grow below the ground that are a very important part of a plant? We can look over here and that says roots. So it's talking about the root system. Let's turn the page. And the author has given us another really cool diagram. And what this diagram is showing is a seed underground. So it's looking at, if you've ever planted a plant before, you have to take a seed and you have to plant it in the dirt. And then that seed grows and it sprouts. And then we have a plant that grows from it. And so this seed here has different parts. And the author is showing us the parts of the seed. And it looks like how they've done this is they've actually cracked the seed open. So I can see one half of the seed here, and then I imagine that they kind of flipped it open so you could see inside of the seed. What you would see if you were just looking at the seed would probably be just this side right here. You wouldn't be able to see what's happening inside. But inside, so the outside of a seed, it's called a seed coat. And I like to think of that as like we wear a coat to protect us from the rain. And so this seed needs a coat to protect it from things that would harm it. And then inside there is food storage, because we have to remember that seed needs food and water to grow. And then there's also something called an embryo, which is an undeveloped plant. And so we can look in here and there's an embryo inside of the plant, which undeveloped means it hasn't started to grow yet. And then our very last page here has another text feature that some nonfiction texts have in it, and that's called a glossary. And a glossary has a really important job. It helps us as a reader know what some of the important vocabulary words mean in the text. So let's look at some of these words before we start reading today. This is a flower, and the definition of a flower is the seed-bearing part of a plant. So this flower is where they actually have the seeds are stored inside of that flower. So seed-bearing means it holds the seeds. And the next word that we're going to see in our text is seed coat, and we kind of talked about that on that previous page. It's the outer skin of the seed. So I like to think of it as if I'm wearing my coat, it's the outer part, my outer part of my clothing, so it protects me. So this is going to protect that seed. And our next vocabulary word is the word seeds, which is the part of a plant that can form a new plant. So in order to make a plant grow, you have to have a seed and you have to plant that seed. And then our next vocabulary word is the word soil. And soil is the ground or earth. Sometimes we might call the word soil dirt, and it's where you plant the seeds. And then our last vocabulary word that our glossary defines for us is the word sunlight, which is light from the sun. So these words, we're going to be seeing them in our text. So it's important that we as readers kind of look at that glossary or those important words before we read, so that we can be prepared for them when we get to them. And also, if we can't remember while we're reading, then we remember that we can always go back to that glossary and we can look up what that word means if we're not sure. So let's flip back to the beginning of our text, How Plants Grow. And I want to talk to you very quickly about some strategies that readers have. So we just talked about one strategy, which is previewing the book and looking at some of those words that we might be encountering as we're reading, and we kind of prepare our brains to know what those words might mean or might be. Another strategy is that we use our pictures. So we did that during our picture walk, where we really were looking closely at those pictures and kind of preparing our reading brain for some of those things that we might be reading about. And another strategy I want to talk to you about today is how we can break words apart into smaller parts. And that can help us sometimes when we're looking for some tricky words or some longer words. And so I want to give you an example of that. If I look here on this page of this word right here, okay? And some of you might know that word. So if you know it, you can just join me along and listen for our strategy. If you don't know it, then this would be a great way for you to start learning how to figure this word out. So I'm going to write this word up on my board. And one thing that good readers do when they get stuck on tricky words is they look for parts of words that we know. We say, what do I know about this word? And so I can see that there's two letters that I know the sounds of. I know that P says P, and I know that L says ul. So I'm going to blend those two sounds. I'm going to put those two sounds together, and I'm going to say pull. Why don't you say that with me? Pull. Very good. Now I'm going to move on to this next part of my word. And I know that A-N says an, and if I add a T on the end, it's going to say t. So I'm going to put this together. Ant, ant. So I have pull, ant, and the word is plant. So did you see how we can break that up into smaller parts and then we can put that together? Let's try that with another word that we're going to be seeing on this page. Okay. So first off, I can see that there's an ending on this word. I know that when ing is together, it says ing. So one strategy I can use as a reader is I can actually just kind of cover that up for a moment. So I can take and I can say, I'm going to just take that ing off for a moment, and I'm just going to cover it until I can figure out what this other part of the word is. So I'm going to just do that, and you could do that with your hand. I'm going to just cover it with my whiteboard here. Now I'm going to look at what I have left. So I know that G and R together say grr, grr. And I know that OW says oh, oh. It's going to make the long O sound. So let's put those two parts together. Grr, O, grow. So what's the word? Grow. Now, if I add my ending back on, I know that ing says ing, so I have growing, growing. So that is a strategy as you're reading, that if you get stuck on a word, see if you can find smaller parts of that word that you might know and break it up into littler chunks, and then you can put those chunks together and see if you can figure that word out. All right, let's go to the back or the beginning of our book, and we're going to read together how plants grow. So I invite you to read along with me, and you can use your finger to follow along or your eyes. This is our title page, How Plants Grow by Ruth Madison. Okay. Here we go. Here is a plant. The plant is growing. We just solved that word together, didn't we? So we can see here that they're showing us that this plant is growing. Plants grow inside and outside. Plants grow in soil. And look, I can see that word is bold print. That tells my reading brain that that word is important. And if I remember correctly, I can actually flip back and I remember that that word soil was in my glossary. And so soil is the ground or earth. So when I flip back to there, that helps me better understand my text because it says plants grow in soil. So that means that they grow in the ground or the earth. And there's our word from today. Who remembers what that word is? If you know it, say it out loud. What's the word? They. They can grow on rocks and in sand too. So we just learned a few things about plants. If there's somebody in the room, I want you to share one thing about where plants grow. If there's nobody in the room with you, you can share it to the computer. All right. So I learned today that plants can grow on rocks. So they can grow in soil, on rocks, or in sand. Let's keep reading. Look at this plant. It is growing in a desert. Look at this plant. It is growing in a forest. This is that cool picture. Look at this plant. It is growing in the ocean. So that's an underground plant or underwater plant. See, sorry, that's growing in the ocean. I can see that blue background. That's pretty neat. Look at this plant. It is growing on another plant. So I'm going to pause for a second, and I want you to share one place that you saw or that we've read about of where plants grow. All right, so you could have said that they grow in the ocean or on another plant. You could have said that they grow on rocks or in the desert or in the forest. Any of those things would have been correct. Plants need sunlight to grow. And I remember this important word. It means light from the sun. So I know that plants need sunlight to grow. They need water to grow too. Sunlight and water help plants to grow. So there's two things that they talk about that plants need to grow on this page. Say those two things out loud. What are the two things plants need to grow? Sunlight and water. Very good. And this is that caption. Let's read that again. This tells us about what's happening in this picture. Plants can take energy from the sun and make sugars. And I have some background knowledge about that. I know that they use those sugars as their food. Let's come over and read this page. Some plants have flowers. Flowers are the part of the plant that makes seeds. So I can refresh my memory on this really cool diagram over here that shows us all the different parts of a plant. When a seed is planted and watered, it will begin to grow. The seed coat will break and a root will pop out. Remember that seed coat's that part that protects the seed. So once it's under the ground and it's starting to be watered, that seed coat breaks, and then that undeveloped plant or that embryo starts to grow out and make a root. And that's the end of our book. There was a lot of really good information about plants in this story. I'd like you to share two things that you learned from this book. Go ahead and pause the video and share two things that you learned after reading this book about plants. All right, welcome back. I learned some really cool things about plants, and I hope that you did too. I challenge you after this video is over to do some writing about our book. So maybe you could write a couple of facts that you learned about plants from our story. Another cool thing that you might want to do is you might want to try to draw a diagram like they did on this page of a plant and label the different parts of the plant. That would be kind of a fun activity to work on too. And you could use your creativity and you could create your own flower on your plant. Before we're done for today, we're going to do one last thing, and that's some word study. And so I'm going to come back to our main screen here, and we are going to build some words together. And all you need for this activity is a whiteboard if you have one. And if you don't have a whiteboard, that's okay. You can just use a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. And on your paper or your whiteboard, I want you to draw 4 boxes. So I'm going to do this back here, and I'm going to draw 4 boxes. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we are going to call these sound boxes. So each box is going to get their own sound in it. And if you need to pause the video to draw your boxes, go ahead and do that now. All right. So like I was saying, we're going to be looking for sounds. So each box is going to get a sound in it, okay? And we're going to make a word by putting together some different sounds. So I'm going to give you an example. The first word that I'm going to write is the word grit. Repeat that word with me, grit. Let's say that word slowly. So you have probably lots of different strategies that your teachers have taught you for sounding words out. Some of your teachers maybe taught you to pull it down and listen for the sounds and stretch them out. Some of your teachers maybe have taught you how to pound and tap out the sounds. You can use whatever strategy you want for sounding out your sounds. I like to use the the strategy of pounding and tapping, because that helps my brain to be able to feel the different sounds. So you're going to see me say the word, and then when I hear a sound, I'm going to put my finger up. And so I'm going to say the word again. The word is grit. Say that with me. Grit. Let's say the first sound in grit. G. What letter says G? The letter G. I'm going to write that letter in my first box. Let's keep going. Grit. G. What letter says that? The letter R. Good. Let's keep sounding it out. Grit. G. I. Which of our vowels says I? The letter I says I. Okay, let's keep going. Grit. G. I. T. The letter T says T. So let's check our sounds. G. I. T. And let's blend them together. Grit. Very good. This time, I would like you to join me, if you didn't the last time, if you were just watching, and carefully erase your letters in your boxes if you're using a whiteboard. If you have a piece of paper, then go ahead and draw another box, sound box with 4 sounds. The next word that we're going to write is the word grip. I have a strong grip. Let's pound and tap. Grip. G. What letter says G? Let's write our G. Grip. G. Grip. G. I. Very good. Grip. G. P says P. Good. Let's check our sounds. G. P. Let's blend it. Grip. What's the word? Grip. Very nice. Now, I don't want you to erase this word grip. I actually want you to leave it up there. We're going to change 2 sounds to make a new word. If you are using a paper and pencil, then you can draw another box underneath. If you're using a whiteboard, then you can just erase. You're going to see me just erase. We're going to turn the word grip into the word flip. 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 Let's pound and tap that one. Flip. Ooh, I've got to change this G because that says G to the letter that says F, the letter F. Let's keep going. Flip. O. Which letter says O? The letter O. Flip. O. I. I've already got it. I've already got it. So I changed my 2 beginning letters to make a new beginning sound. Let's touch and say our sounds. O, I, P. Let's blend it. Flip. Let's say it like a word. Flip. Good job. All right, go ahead and erase. And again, if you're using a piece of paper, you can just draw 4 more boxes. If you're using a whiteboard, go ahead and erase. Okay. The next word we're going to do is the word plug. I have a electrical plug. Plug. Let's pound and tap it. Plug. P. Write your letter. Plug. P. Ol. Good. Plug. P. Ol. What letter says That's a vowel. It's our U. Plug. P. O. G. And there's that G again. Plug. Let's check our sounds. P. O. G. Let's blend it. Plug. Let's say it like a word. Plug. Good. We're going to change 1 letter in the word plug. I want you to listen really closely and see if you can figure out which letter you're going to change. You're going to go from plug to the word plum. I'm going to eat a plum for dinner. Plum. Let's stretch it out. Plum. O, Ooh. Which letter do you need to change? That last sound. Plum ends with the sound That's an M. Let's check it. P, O, Let's blend it. Plum. Let's say it like a word. Plum. Great job today, boys and girls. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time. I challenge you to go back and reread our story, and if you can, try turning the volume off so that you can't hear me reading, and see if you can read our story all by yourself. And I also challenge you maybe to do some writing about our book or some drawing, and you can make up your own plant and you can label the parts of that plant. I'll see you next time. Bye.